Welcome to episode 13 of the Farms in BC podcast. My name is Jay, and today, Nav and I will be discussing the acreage lifestyle. Whether you prefer living on a hobby farm or in an estate home, this one's for you. Stay tuned. All right, we got another episode here, Acreage Lifestyles. And, this is a good one because obviously we're avid, supporters of this kind of a thing. And this is essentially every single client that we have.
Yeah.
And,
that's why they're buying a farm or they're buying an acreage.
Exactly, because obviously we'll be services 1 acre plus. Yeah. And, that's where the acreage side comes into it. So for today, we're really going to be diving deep into the hobby farm side of things versus the estate farm type side of things. There's 2 different types of farms.
Yeah.
Both can be on 1 acre, both can be on 30 acres, right? Just depends. Obviously, a hobby farm would be a little bit on the smaller end, whereas a state may or may not be on the smaller end, right? I don't know. Maybe we should dive into the hobby farm side of things first. What are your thoughts on
hobby farms are more, the way I look at hobby farms, they're more farms that are used for some sort of purpose, either for animals, for living. You've got additional, maybe some fruit trees. You might have some sort of pond in the backyard. You might be doing some sort of pumpkin patches or something. It's more on a smaller scale, personal use, more used for family and things like that, right? It's not really used or geared towards the business side of farming or agriculture. It's not to make a profit. It's not to increase the production so that I can sell X.
Yeah.
Right? That's the way I see hobby farms really been.
Yeah, and another word that often comes up is homestead. It's kind of like where you're kind of setting up the entire property for personal consumption, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you're kind of creating just enough for your own family to live off of, essentially, or maybe be off grid, for example.
Yeah. People have chickens. They'll have their own fresh eggs. They'll have you name it.
I'd say the chickens is probably the most efficient one.
It is.
That's the one you see the most commonly.
Yeah.
That is very self-sustaining in a way. And there's obviously berry farms and whatnot if you want to do 1 or 2 acres, but really at that point you're not really feeding yourself. You're probably going to be using it for your own pleasure, or it's just kind of giving
even 1 cherry tree or 1 peach tree, it produces a lot. So anytime I go to every time I go do an evaluation and they're ready to pick, they'll always give us a bag. They'll take this extra bag of cherries home.
Reminds me of growing up on a 5 acre parcel actually.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had a lot of raspberry in the back. It was 3-4 acres of raspberry, but just off the 1 acre where we just had fruit trees, it was just an endless supply of fruit trees for the entire summer. It's fruit, right, for the entire summer, to the point where we actually started selling it on the roadside, right? So
is that how you guys started that?
You could say that, yeah. So we kind of started early and we kept it going, right? And hobby farms, man, it's small scale farming in a way that's efficient that you can sustain yourself. That's I would say it's pretty much it. The gist of it.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily for the home. It's more so for that lifestyle.
But most hobby farms I've seen is with the home. You won't see it that's land only, or people have the multi-purpose of having that lifestyle, but it doesn't have to be a big mansion or a big estate home. It's just a house on acreage. Have that lifestyle. Yeah.
And it's one of those.
Have the roost at 6.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's definitely a part of it, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different ways you could go about it. I mean, obviously, there's different types of the hobby farms. You could go into livestock, you could do crops, or you could just do, just pleasure, like where horses come in, dogs come in. It's not really for any.
We've got a client that
it's just lifestyle.
He loves his dogs, so he doesn't board, he doesn't breed, he just has 3-4 dogs. And he loves training them in his backyard. So he got an acreage, put some nice trails in the back or training for his dogs, and he enjoys that. And they're show dogs. He also takes them out for the shows, right?
I mean, if you got a business or something that you're doing in regards to that, then you need that space.
That's right. Well, because you look in residential areas, they're so restricted. You're only allowed to have 1 dog. You has to be on a leash. You can't bark after whatever. The amount of restrictions within the residential area, you don't get to have that enjoyment like you do these hobby farms.
So a lot of our leads that do come in are, exactly that. Folks that are looking to get into a little bit more space.
5 to 10 acres max.
Yeah. On the high end, even 1 acre sometimes is sufficient, right? So I mean, sometimes it's just that 1 or 2 acre to have a nice home, but enough room for the kids to go outside and play, run around, actually have a backyard, which is tested these days.
Low maintenance on an acre versus 5 acres. Yeah.
Whereas maybe out in Vancouver, that's only enough to get you an apartment, 1 bedroom with a balcony, right?
2 bedroom,
you
2
probably
baths.
get for that same price a nice acreage up in the rural area.
That's right.
It really depends. If you're close to town,
Yeah.
it could be up in the 2-3 million range. But if you're a little bit more rural, up to almost 30 minutes away from town or something like that, you can get them for almost
Mission,
acreage only.
Acreage only. Mission, Maple Ridge, maybe.
Yeah.
But like what I've noticed is the amount of demand for Abbotsford, Chilliwack, Langley, Surrey. Man, the prices are like you and I discussed this earlier. It's a luxury. It's a luxury to own land.
Yeah, it is.
And what we've noticed is a lot of people have done very well here in the last 20, 30, 40 years of their careers. And they all want to get a piece of land to build their house, to have that lifestyle. Small or big home doesn't really matter, but they want to have that lifestyle.
Yeah. And just having a house on that land already there is really obviously beneficial.
Yes.
But it's really nice to be able to kind of just move into a home, buy it affordably, as long as there's a home there, renovate, do whatever you got to do, increase it or add extensions and go from there, right? But it allows you to get into that, which may or may not be possible later in the future, so get in while you can, right? And build it from there.
Yeah.
So we see a lot of folks doing that. But it really comes down to also off-grid. That's been one of the themes that we've been seeing recently.
Yeah.
If they're going up to, rural areas on mountains and whatnot, they're getting their drilled wells, they're getting their solar, and really trying to go off-grid. That seems to be a theme that I've seen a little bit coming up, especially out in Hope, in rural Chilliwack. I've seen that. I've actually had clients move all the way from Vancouver to home in that area, right, just for that personal off-grid lifestyle. So that's been interesting. What do you think about that?
I guess you see it more on your side of things when you're more in Hope, Agassiz, Chilliwack. For us, like any farm that or acreage or hobby farm you buy in Richmond, Delta, Surrey, Langley, you're 10 minutes away from town. It doesn't care where it is. There's a town so close by that every farm now or every acreage you're in the city because the cities have grown so fast and so big, right?
That's right.
But out in your area, you probably see that a lot more than I do.
Yeah, and we also see like if you're really close to town, it's the opposite, right?
Yeah.
Even in Abbotsford, even in Mission, if you're close to town, those acreages are going up in price.
Well, they're hard to even find because no one wants to sell.
That's right.
Right, and that's why that price demand starts going up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I guess on the other side of things, we got the estate homes, estate farms.
Yeah.
I guess what defines an estate home?
I would say usually it would be like quote unquote a mansion, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, an estate home is something that is bigger than your average home. So an average typical home is between 3,500 to 4,500 square feet. So I would say anything above that. And it would be a newer home, not an older home. So something built, I would say, in the last 10 years. And also has that landscape of an oasis of an estate, which would have nice, beautiful gates, nice cedar hedging around the property, manicured landscaping. You've got a pool, you've got these garden beds, you've got a basketball court, you've got a fire pit, you've got a gazebo. And trust me, I've seen it. That's why I can name it, right? Like, it's funny because I was at one last week, actually. They didn't have the pool or anything. Basic house, nice sprawling rancher, had a mobile home. But when you walk to this backyard, like, it was just done. Like, it was so peaceful back there. He had the back portion leased for hay. It was a 10-acre piece. We're actually listing it next week. He had 8 acres, was leased for hay. The back portion, it was a nice, beautiful gazebo. He had amazing flower beds. He had a volleyball court set up for his kids. Like, that's like it's what you like, right? So that when I think of an estate, that's what I think of. I don't really think of like, an estate has to be a 10,000 square foot house.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're out there. I'm not saying they're not, but that's as low as what I feel an estate is.
I 100% agree, and I think you have to have a dream, you have to have a vision, something to aspire to, and I think these are really the pinnacle of what we're trying to aim for, or a lot of folks are trying to aim for, right? So
in their life, like I want to retire on an estate.
Everybody has a lifestyle that's ideal for them, right? And a lot of these folks, they take a lot of pride in their landscaping, they take a lot of pride in taking care of their house from the outside and manicuring and everything else, and it really shows, and that
the maintenance on these the upkeep are and I've noticed a lot of people, when you build an estate, it's not something you build and move in right away. It's you build a house, you move in, and you are literally doing a project every year for the next 5 years. You're building this, you're going to expand this, you're going to do this, and it's always just an ongoing, never-ending project after project to finally get it to where you feel that you enjoy.
I mean, it's funny because I also see homes that are great big mansions, but there's no upkeep taken, or there's no pride in that outside, the exterior, the landscaping, homes and that. But obviously, maybe that's just circumstance, right? Maybe they came in too hard on the home, or whatever the case may be, right?
Or over budget.
Yeah, and then it comes with time. Over time, they probably add it in, and it continues from there. I see the ones that really take care of their estate. You can tell.
Not only can you tell, it pays off when you sell.
Oh, absolutely.
Like landscaping is one of the best ways to get a high value, like a ridiculously high value for your property.
Yeah, definitely one of the biggest bangs for your buck if you wanted to, do the landscaping outside your house, just to increase the value of your property before selling. I think that's a great way to go about it. Just having that pride in that, right? So it really shows.
Yeah. What's your favorite part about the estate homes?
Well, I mean,
like estate properties, like you've seen a bunch now.
It's
and some of them are just ridiculous. Like we've seen like massive man caves. We've seen like chandeliers that are worth like $120,000-$130,000 chandeliers. Like it's what do you really like about it?
More what I see around here is interior pools or indoor pools and things like that. That blows me away, and every time I come to one, right? So it's so beautiful because they take care of it. It's all good, and it's actually usable throughout the year. Because obviously where we're located, it's raining half the time, right? So it's not exactly ideal for a pool, but even actually recently, I've seen a lot of heated pools outdoors as well, right? I just love a good pool. If it's a good pool, like I'm just like, okay, value just went up. In my head, right? But and even so, I mean, when you have that on photo, video, when you're presenting that property,
it does present.
It shows so much better, right? It's well taken care of. On the conversely, on the other side, if it's not taken care of, it's just an old pool, it's like deteriorating or whatever the case is. It's the opposite effect, right? Because it's a big asset that's just sore, eyesore, right? So that's definitely one of them. I also really am a sucker for basketball courts. So if I see a good basketball court, I'm just like, ooh, that's it, right? That's the idea.
For me, I again, it's the same thing. If you don't take care of it, you got moss growing underneath. The paint is chipping, and it's maintenance, right? The more you do, the more you're gonna have to maintain.
That's right.
So it's always easier just to put grass and just cut the grass and maintain that versus all these other things, but
And that's the thing. I mean, if you got the space and you're comfortable spending that kind of money, I think that's a great way to enjoy that kind of a property. Right? You can't really do that everywhere. I mean, obviously, if you're in the city, you can kind of have joint areas that you can do that in. But obviously, this is your own estate, your own property. Being able to do that with your children and the next children coming after them, right? It's really nice.
Well, that's kind of the idea. What we've seen is a lot of people that build these big houses, they're not just one family living in there. They're multi-generational. You've got grandparents, kids, grandkids, all living under this one roof. And then you've got this beautiful backyard that you get to build these amazing memories in.
And these stories they tell of their property are just phenomenal. I mean, this is, they'll let you know about all the weddings that they had.
Or the backyard parties they used to throw in.
Yeah, absolutely. And the pride that they had and, the different things that happened throughout their life at that property. And, these stories are also stories that we can tell to the next owner and, they can tell to the next, right? So it just depends, right? There's a lot of things that happen on these properties that are real dreams that were created and forged and, fast forward.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times it just so happens that these properties are going up in value so much that it may not be able to be passed down, or it may not be able to be divided between the family. And that's usually when they do get
That's
sold.
when they sold, yeah.
But on a smaller acreage,
Yeah.
it's a really efficient way to kind of go about it to create a stable on a small acreage.
We've seen the people that are exiting is sometimes it's just they're just too old and maintenance is just too much and they want to downsize, or the kids and the grandkids, everybody's moved out and then have their own lives, right? And that typically does happen.
Because I've seen some really big properties as well for if we're talking about estate farms and estate acreages and whatnot. Really big properties where they have a massive home, but the ability to exit from that is very difficult.
Yes.
Right? Because it's just too hard to afford, right?
That's right.
And typically you're going to have to find someone outside the family to purchase it and eventually divide up and go forward from there. And hopefully next time, get into another state that's smaller or whatever.
Yeah.
So other uses for acreage, I mean, aside from the actual homes themselves or say the crops and the livestock, what are some other uses you can create on an acreage?
What I've seen that benefits people the most is they utilize the land or the home, so a home office, for their personal business.
Right.
So they may have a barn with, say, a few horses, but a side of the building they might use for storage for some of the materials for their personal business. We've seen it on the trucking industry where an individual wants to have a 5-acre blueberry farm. He'll build his house or he'll live in the existing house, but he's legally allowed to park 2 to 3 of his personal trucks. So it's what I've seen it is when people have their personal businesses and they get to utilize the actual farm to really integrate their personal business. They save money, save costs, save time, right? Traveling sometimes. So that's where I've seen the efficiency really grow is these hobby farms. That's where the acreage use is at is optimal.
Absolutely, and I mean buildings are another huge asset. Really contributes to the acreage lifestyle, right? So I mean, having that shop on hand to fix your machinery or park your machinery for agriculture or whatever have you, right? Depending on what your business is, really comes into play and is really an asset that you can't really have elsewhere. So you need an acreage for that.
Yeah. So it's back to like even I know some people that have these farms where they might even have like a bobcat. They have like a landscaping company, but they're utilizing and they're growing 2-3 acres of shrubs that they sell with their business. So everything just goes hand in hand, right? They get to park their excavator, their bobcat, plus 1 or 2 trucks, plus they're doing the farming, plus they're doing the nursery side of things. So you're getting all these benefits, right?
Then at the end of the day, there's also outdoor lifestyle, really just getting outside and being outside. And for a lot of folks, this is the true, like I guess you could say, lifestyle that they're really looking for. Their true luxury that they're looking for is freedom to be outside and express themselves, not have any other noise involved in their area, right? So no traffic,
no neighbors.
No neighbors is essentially it. Right? So having a little bit more space than the average condo or townhouse is a huge plus, right? Depending on where you're selling, you could sell a townhouse in one place and buy a huge acre somewhere else, right? Depending on how much it is.
You like you said earlier, you could literally sell a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo in downtown and buy an acre that has a house already on it for the same price.
That's right. Which is crazy.
It is.
But it's just a lifestyle change if you're willing to kind of go down that route, right? And there's a lot of folks recently that are willing and able, right? So,
I think people are valuing especially after COVID, we saw this massive wave going towards that type of lifestyle. We are seeing a lot of people go back to that original, they miss the downtown hustle and bustle lifestyle. I've always been a country boy. I've always loved that acreage lifestyle. Like, I hate even driving into downtown. I just hate going to downtown. But that's my personal preference. But
you could argue Surrey's getting into that.
and that's why I'm moving to Langley. That's why I'm moving to Langley.
Fair enough.
Right? But it's the cities are growing. People are wanting more space. People are doing well in their businesses, and they want to be able to. They finally have that financial freedom to kind of take that acreage lifestyle step, and it's interesting to see because to us, those are our first-time buyers. So when a residential realtor says, "I'm working with the first-time home buyer," right? To us, that's how we feel.
That's
Is when we find someone that's looking for a 5-acre hobby farm with a house, and they've got all these plans and all these ideas, and we can sit down and plan with them and say, hey, this is good, this is bad. Hey, you're not allowed to do this, but you can do this, you can do that, and then kind of sit there and create a business plan for these guys, right?
Yeah.
That gives me a lot of joy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. First time acre buyers.
Yeah.
Great memories, obviously, with new families,
Yeah.
young children that are moving into this acreage that are, going to be able to experience so much more than they ever have before. Right?
Yeah.
Just those finalizing sales are another kind of treat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, there's so many other use cases on the acreage that you can implement, but cash flow is usually one of the main considerations. And that's usually why people want to get into an acreage as well. Obviously, business is first and foremost, but sometimes cash flow is just simply coming in from rentals and whatever have you, maybe having an RV that you want to rent out or your own personal RV.
We've seen as simple as people renting out an RV pad.
Right.
So not a fixed home, but just a pad.
Right.
We've seen a suite in a barn. We've seen mobile homes. We've seen people renting out additional paddocks for horses when they've got space on their barns and they might only have 1 or 2 horses, but they've got 10 paddocks there, right? There's a lot of ways to generate revenue off a farm. We've seen people just lease a section of their farming to organic farmers.
That's right.
Right?
Just to get farm status, you can even just lease.
Yeah.
You can get that farm status as well, right? That's another advantage.
Yeah.
For sure, for cash flow. Obviously, recent changes have allowed a little bit of flexibility in the rental side of things on acreages.
Yeah, for that second residence.
Right.
Prior to 2019, I had to have been farm workers or family, immediate family. Now they've opened it up to
Pretty much anything.
and rent. You can rent it.
Yeah. Which is a huge help. I think it
More
is
help,
definitely
yeah.
right direction. I think we've talked about this in previous podcasts.
Yeah.
Great. So, I mean, any other final thoughts on acreages? I know it's something that we're really passionate about.
Yeah.
But I know for myself, I think land is the new luxury. I think that's the way things are kind of trending. If possible, it's the way to go. A lot of times it's not possible just with the way how prohibitive the prices have become.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts?
My thoughts is do your homework. Acreages, there's a lot of pros, there's a lot of cons, but depending on what you think you can do on it versus to what you can do on it are 2 different things. So always consult, have a buyer's consultation, and sit down with someone that's an agricultural expert that knows the rules, that can help and guide you through the process before you make that big step. Because it is a big step. It's a big financial leap.
Right.
From your residential detached to this acreage. It's a different lifestyle, it's additional costs. So making sure that when you decide to take this leap, you're ready and you've made a good plan to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome.